Sebastian has been absolutely nuts in the chat talking about this tonight, and thank you, Sebastian. We appreciate it. I'm with you. I think it's highly interesting. You're one of the few with the incentive or the idea to look at buying HEX. Let me ask you, so referencing a poll that Sami did earlier, and I'm glad you guys are talking about this idea of the fall season here in the U.S. in December of this year also, as far as where we could see the prices of this ecosystem. Are we looking at like just getting back to sack rate by that point? Are we talking about it really maybe starting to move? You know, it seems like forever ago. So, I mean, we forget that Pulse was actually double the sack rate at one point for a short period of time. You know, more towards when it really came out. But Sami had a tweet yesterday, and I always love to look at these different polls from people to see what community, what bigger amounts of people are thinking. This has about 850 votes. What price do you think total HEX, so both of them combined, will be on December 31st, so the end of 2023? He had 4 options, and the one that won the majority at about 36% was still less than a penny. Okay, so right now, people think by the end of the year, HEX will still be combined under a penny. And keep in mind that it just went under a penny. So, you know, very recently. So to me, I think that seems bullish by the end of the year. I mean, like, you know, fading the crowd usually being something that works for the fact that most people think that. Now, I will say the second category that won was 1 to 3 cents. But then after that, he had 3 to 6 cents. So for me, I definitely think we could, you know, we got to remember, like, just a few weeks ago, we were at like a combined price of 3 cents. I mean, we had that 2 to 1 ratio while literally being about 2 to 1, you know, back in June. And then obviously HEX started to fall below that. And that's when the whole HEX, PHEX narrative stuff started. But
yeah.
What do you make of that, Ewok? Because I think the majority of people still saying under a penny when we just got there right now, you know, is huge recency bias. And I don't know, if to me, makes me more bullish on what we'll probably see as we get into the winter months.
Yeah, well, you know, we've talked about this a lot. It's going to be boring. The bear markets are boring. There isn't a whole lot of action until you get really closer to the halvening, and that's not till April. So,
Yeah,
you know, we could easily. I think we could get in the between 1 and 3 cent range. That was my vote, and that's where I kind of saw things. I think once it bottoms, we do have a little bit of price up. People get tired. The sellers get exhausted, and they will eventually. And the other thing is that everything is so tied together with liquidity that, you know, the rising tide will rise all the boats. So once it does start to happen, you'll see a steady increase of all of the coins together.
right.
You know, the introduction of a stable coin is going to help. CST coin is still pretty new, right? There's not a whole lot of liquidity for that. That's going to help give us a floor once there's some liquidity pairs with the CST token. Once we get some liquidity in there, it's going to help even things out and not be so dependent on Pulse and Pulse X. And when one thing moves, everything kind of goes. You know, that's kind of what we need, is a little bit of a break. Now, on the other side of that, when Pulse and Pulse X do start to run, it's going to really catapult the HEX and PHEX, EHEX and PHEX both. So it you know, it's very reflexive. It's still new. Everything is new. Everything's being, you know, there's so much stuff still being built. You got liquid loans coming. Well, that means people don't have to sell anymore when that gets launched. So you know, you've got to think about all these things that are coming to the whole system, and how are they going to affect it? You know, I think it's very bullish, but I think it's going to take some time, and I don't think all this stuff is going to be ready. That's why I say it's still going to be pretty boring probably until the end of the year. I could see a combination of between 1 and 3 cents. I think we could have a little run up, but I don't see it getting much further than that by December. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, 3 cents is about where I would land on that. And, you bring up a good point, Ewok, and I know this is not anything anybody wants to hear. Everybody just wants to see price go up and forget about
Sure.
it. But let's acknowledge that, this thing launched May 12th. So here we are, what, the 100 days basically,
Yep.
since launch, and it's worked flawlessly. I mean, yeah, there's been, is there going to be single-sided staking on PulseX? Is there not? Then there was a miscalculation with some of the incentives here and there. But as far, nothing's been down. Everything's worked perfectly. As you've just stated, a lot of the features have not even been rolled out yet. So when they do come, like right now, hey, if single-sided staking suddenly came out, which I don't know that right now would be a good time to do that, but
Why not?
when it, hey, I am not the guy to answer that question. All I am saying is if and when it does, people will be nuts, is
Yep.
all I'm saying. That's what I
Well,
do know. So
it's
yeah.
bullish. It's very bullish, but yeah, you're right. It may not. I think the devs may be kind of put on hold for now as far as any kind of updates or anything goes. But it would be a big screw you to the SEC, I think, if they just kept doing whatever they're doing. I know there was some Ethereum updates rolled out recently that we have not seen yet, because that was one of the main reasons why that they did end up forking Ethereum instead of the BSC, was because they could just roll the upgrades out as soon as they were on Ethereum. So, I know
Yeah.
there's a couple to come. We'll see when those roll out, or to see, at least it would give us an idea, or if the devs are still working. I'm sure you could probably go into the GitHub and see activity. I haven't been in there. So if anybody has in the comments been in there and seen any activity, let us know.
Yeah, definitely for sure. So we will have those updates coming, and that's what's cool is that they're not out yet. So definitely keep that in mind. Let's talk real quick, and then we're going to get into this is a perfect segue because the big man RH himself has just started a tweet storm with several different court rulings from the past that we're going to take a look at here, because we were going to talk about him for a moment, but about the HEX on both chains. And this is the second time we've seen this. So with the initial SEC drop, and now here we are dropping again, you're starting to see the bands on those two and the liquidity come together, and that 2-to-1 ratio evaporating a little bit. And Sebastian has been absolutely nuts in the chat talking about this tonight, and thank you, Sebastian. We appreciate it. I'm with you. I think it's highly interesting. You're one of the few with the incentive or the idea to look at buying EHEX. And I understand it. I understand it completely. If you're looking at both of them and assuming that there will be liquidity bonding and that they will rise together at some point, whatever that means to you, you can make your own decisions on that. But as we've seen the prices come down, Ewok, we have started to see these two get a little bit closer together. Do you think that that is indicative of what may happen when we ever, if it does happen, someday get some kind of a slingshot up? Do you think we could see similar behavior when both these things start rising together as well?
Sure. Yeah. Everything's tied together with liquidity. So it's really going to depend on how tightly, what I would love to see is, if they do kind of get a little bit closer, even if it's a 1.25 or a 1.5, I could see it being 1.5 to 1. I think that's a solid ratio. You're looking at the value that PulseChain brings with the cheaper fees and everything like that. It should be a little bit more valuable. I don't know that it will ever be a 1-to-1 ratio. I don't think so.
Right.
If it does, then great. Who cares? So like I said, that's why we said keep both and you win either way. But who knows? Could ETH ever sling past the Ethereum hex? Could it ever sling past Pulse hex? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that, like I said, the value proposition on PulseChain is still much better. But if that does happen, when it does get to, or say it gets to 1.5, and then somebody piles a whole bunch of liquidity in between the two as a pair, it'll stay there. Like it will truly stay there. And it's going to be pretty hard to separate it. So
Right.
yeah, it could springboard up just as easily, and the bigger the number gets, obviously that 1.5 to 1 changes a lot, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at, if you're saying $20 for one and 30 for another, that's 1.5. So it's, but when we're talking cents, I think that's the smaller the cents get, I think it does appear to be a little bit, closer, easier to stay together. But, like I said, the further it goes up, the further it's probably going to get apart. But, it's yet to be seen what that ratio will end up. But sure, they're going to move up together just the same as they came down together.
Yeah. And we've really only seen that, again, it's been 100 days. So we've really only
Yeah.
seen roughly this 2-to-1 scenario and a little bit less than that. Actually, at one point, it was there was only about a 30% difference. So